If you don't mind sharing, how much was the one for the hazmat level cleaning?
1 year with a 4-year option, total of like, I think 167,000, give or take.
That's
And
tremendous.
then, yeah, and so then I took that relationship and bid on another one, and that one is for, I believe, 270,000. And so both of those contracts, I'm actually making more off of those contracts from subcontracting it out than any of my other sources of income. And I have about 4 different sources.
Which is tremendous, just in a couple of months. And so this is amazing. All my amazing GovCon winners, we have Joe with JJG Commercial, who is here to talk about some of his amazing government contracting wins. So Joe, welcome to the channel.
Thank you for having me.
No, anytime. So tell us, what do you do and how did you get into government contracting?
So I've owned a lot of businesses, had a lot of failed businesses. That's important. And about 4 or 5 years ago, I got into commercial real estate as a commercial real estate agent. And so my thought was something I can do that my body can handle long term, so I could do it till I'm 80 years old. But the allure of passive income has always driven me. And so something I could do where I could make passive income, and commercial real estate seemed like that vessel. And it didn't really pan out the way that I'd. And so I looked for alternative methods of making money. I did have a successful Amazon business, but that requires me to go shopping, buy stuff on clearance, box it up, pack it up, ship it up. And that's something I was trying to get away from. I was trying to get away from the physical aspect of work because I was in a car wreck about 3 years ago and messed up my back. And so doing physical labor really wasn't in the cards for me. And so I kind of kept looking for something better to do. And then I stumbled upon a couple people on YouTube like you, and I thought, well, I do receive a little bit for my knee that got messed up in the Army. So I receive a little bit of income from that. And I was like, well, I'm a service disabled veteran. So why not open an SDVOSB? And I basically just took my business, which is JJG Commercial for commercial real estate. And since it was already open and operating and running, I basically just turned it into a government contracting business about 5 months ago.
Wow. So this is amazing. And, I'm sorry about the accident. And I commend you for making the most out of that and not using it, as an excuse. And I want to say, I love the business name. I love that you started 4 months ago. By chance, did you create a DBA? Because some people wonder, well, is my name too specific? Is the government going to want to buy from me? Did you do that at all? Create a DBA?
Yes, actually. So I created a DBA as JJG Procurement. On SAM, it's JJG Commercial DBA JJG Procurement. And so in the state of Kansas, which is where I'm from, there's no, you don't register DBAs through the state. So the easiest workaround for that, in case you can't register a DBA in your state, is to get your bank statement. So now my bank statement for my bank says JJG Commercial DBA JJG Procurement. And so when you go to change the DBA in the SAM system, you just have to turn that in, and they'll look at your bank statement and say, okay, he does DBA as JJG Procurement. So now I still have my commercial real estate brokerage, which brings in only about 20 or 30,000 a year in profit. And then I have my procurement, which is what I use for my emails and everything.
And I love that. I love that name. I love JJG Procurement. And it's another great strategy that you shared, because I'm headquartered in Florida and they have it down to a science. You got to send a form, pay, they have to put it in a newspaper. So it's good to know that there are these workarounds of going through the bank, having that evidence to send to SAM. So what did you decide? You're like, oh, I don't want to do manual labor. Don't want to take the Amazon route with federal government. So what did you start bidding on as soon as you received your cage code?
Well, actually, can I work backwards from where I want to be and how I ended up where I am? So I'm currently in college to get a master's degree in construction management. So I want to do government construction projects. And we can go into that a little bit because it's pretty interesting. I'm trying to create a joint venture with a large construction company, so that way they can use my SDVOSB status and I get to use experience. That's where I wanted to be. But to get from here to there, you can't just jump in, maybe bid on a $15 million project, and then they want you to put down a 2% bid bond, so it's like $300,000 out of pocket. That's maybe a little bit bridge too far, but I wanted to get some experience under my belt. So basically, I looked in everything that was a 3-hour drive away. And so I tried to stick to just the VA, since I'm SDVOSB. And the VA has bylaws that they have to subcontract, or they have to contract out to SDVOSBs first, and then VOSBs, and then the general public. So you sort of get the first bite at the apple. And what I basically, as I was getting my cage code, which took about, from start to finish, took about 4 weeks. I started in April, and I think in May, I was finally registered fully. I was looking at opportunities, and this one kept popping up every couple weeks. And I was like, well, how come nobody's winning this bid? And you could tell by the way the contractor was writing it, they were getting frustrated. They were putting things in caps, like, read this section, And I was like, So basically nobody's answering the questions correctly. So it was a contract for a specific type of cleaning, where they have to get into hazmat gear and clean and everything. So I found a local company that does that. And they had bid previously on that specific contract with another contractor, but apparently they didn't win the bid because it was resubmitted with, again, like highlighted areas and caps, and like you could tell she was getting frustrated, right? Like, because people weren't answering the questions. I was like, well, I'll take a crack at it. And I was the only one that responded. And so she changed it to a sole source because I basically answered all the questions using that company's experience. They had to have at least 2 years experience in this. They had to show proof, and so basically I took all that evidence, and the previous contractor that had asked for their information, they had never gotten all this information. So no wonder they didn't, meet the minimum requirement. So I was like, I need to know your past history. I need to know who your biggest clients are. And of course they were reluctant to give that to me, but I had to sort of explain to them, like, look, I don't need like the names of your contacts. I just need to know, are you doing this for St. Luke's Hospital, And so you get what I'm saying? So eventually they opened up to me after a few conversations, and I turned everything in, and it became a sole source because no one else answered the question.
Wow. So you have your cage code by May, you see this opportunity, and you practice one of the best strategies. Take notice if it's highlighted, if it's all caps, if it's bolded, if they repeat the same thing, like no overseas, subcontracting, or you must do this. That's like red flag, like do these things. Then you reached out to the company, you got them to know, like, and trust you. You submitted, they were so impressed that within what time of a time frame, like a couple months, they gave you a sole source?
Well, so it was interesting because I believe it was the end of May. It would have been the end of May because I actually went to Guatemala for a couple weeks. So it was before I left for Guatemala. So it was in like May 20 something. I turned in the bid, and immediately I started getting responses back from the contracting officer, which I now know is a good thing. Like if they want clarification on something, or if they want you, like for example, I turned in a spreadsheet that didn't have, the cents, the 0.00. They needed that. And so, I expanded it and just had 0.00 on the end of each of my things in the spreadsheet. So I figured out that she probably wanted to give me the contract. But here's where it gets interesting. It took them at least 4 weeks to put me in the system before they could give me it. So from about the end of May until the end of June, they had to get me in, I forget what system it is, the Tungsten Network system.
Yeah.
And it took them about 4 weeks to get me in. And then when they had everything in the system, they could award me a contract. And so they had to do it that way. So for about 4 weeks, she checked in on me, and I always checked in with, it wasn't necessarily Tungsten, it was FSC out of Texas. So I checked in with them every week, and of course they probably got tired of me calling, but they were like, okay, so here's where it is in the process. And I kept in contact with my contracting officer because I had a feeling she wanted to award it to me, but this had to happen first. So if you are wanting to work with the VA, my number one thing is you can turn in that FSC sheet early. You don't have to have a contract. So you can, I forget what form it is, and I can maybe message you later about what that form is. You can fill that form out and turn it in, and it'll take them 4 to 6 weeks to get you registered. And then you're in the system. And then at that point, the contracting officer can click a couple buttons and then make a contract.
That's amazing. I'm glad you shared that tip because especially the VA and other agencies, they have their own ways of putting in the contract, paying you. So that's great because they had time to be able to add you. And it's great to know that people can fill out the FSC form ahead of time.
And I can send that to you later, which form it is. I will say that I'm pretty sure I would have won another contract because I know I was the lowest bid because I was working with there was a local person who was doing the bids for a bunch of stoves for the local VA, and she bid me about 10,000 less because I was local. And so my bid should have been about 10,000 less, and people would have literally had to make no money to low bid me. And I didn't win it, I'm sure, because there was a certain time frame it had to be done in, and they knew I wasn't in the system. So I'm about 90% sure if I had been in the system, I would have also won $130,000 kitchen reset for the local.
Wow, that's really good to know because we don't really bid on the VA, and when we did win a contract, it was sole sourced, and it was so long ago that I don't even remember which system they used. So this is such a good tip, but you'll win more. How, if you don't mind sharing, how much was the one for the hazmat level cleaning?
So it was 1 year with a 4-year option, total of like I think 167,000, give or take.
That's good. That's tremendous.
And so then I took that relationship and bid on another one that was about 3 hours away, and that one is for, I believe, 270,000.
And did you win that one too?
Yes. And so both of those contracts, I'm actually making more off of those contracts from subcontracting it out than any of my other sources of income. And I have about 4 different sources. So my goal was to make a few thousand a month from, government contracting. And already that's a minimum what I'm going to make as long as these contracts.
Which is tremendous, because this isn't, just in a couple of months.
Since about May 3rd.
And it's October. And so this is amazing. I'm so happy. So, okay. So you put this goal out there, you exceeded it like that, which makes sense. We put things out there. Abundance is the way of life, and things will happen. So now what? You mentioned going to school. You mentioned this potential joint venture. What are some other things that you're working on?
Well, I can go 1 or 2 different directions, and they're very opposite. There's a part of me that while I'm getting my master's degree in construction management, I thought about moving to the Philippines because I don't look it, but I'm half Filipino. So I can actually claim citizenship there and be a dual citizen in the U.S. and the Philippines. And so I can go there and hang out because, my stable passive income is enough that I'm making more than a doctor in the Philippines. I'm making middle-class wage here, but more than a doctor in the Philippines, right? So I thought about living there for a year. And if I do that, I'll probably just bid on things like that I can subcontract out. However, I am working through some connections that I have in the commercial real estate world to get a joint venture with a large construction company. And if that happens, I don't think I would want to move and waste a year so we can talk a little bit about the joint venture program.
Yeah.
So because I'm getting my master's degree in construction management, I can sign with a large construction management firm as a joint venture. And the joint venture is that they are my mentor and I'm their mentee. And so for the next 6 years, they get to use my small business, disabled veteran-owned small business designation, and I get to use their experience on the condition that they're supposed to mentor me on how to do construction management. And so that is something that sort of you have to have if you're going to do construction projects if you're just starting out in government contracting, because the bid bonds is a reflection of your risk. So if you have a large construction company that has, hundreds of millions of dollars in experience and has actually done government contracts before or been subcontractor for large contracts, then you have that work experience. So your bid bond may go from 4% of the total value of the project for the bonding to maybe 1.5%, which could save you, hundreds of thousands of dollars for a $10 or $15 million project. So
I love that. And for those watching, listening, there's a formal application that you have to go through. It's very easy. Both parties take this really simple training. There are some documents that he has to fill out. There's some information they have to provide. And then they also have to create a kind of a mentoring plan, which is really, really simple. And I recently went through this with someone I'm mentoring, and they state it can take 120 days, and God's amazing. It only took I don't even think it took a month. It was so fast.
It moves at the speed of your local SBA. And my local SBA said the same thing. If we get the forms filled out, it'd be about 30 to 45 days, could be up to 6 months. But they basically said, because so few people take advantage of this, that they can easily get it through.
And the company that you're looking to form the joint venture with, have they joint ventured or have they mentored another small business before?
No, both of them that I'm looking at, to my knowledge, no. And in fact, I want to structure it where I am their only SDVOSB mentor or mentee. I don't want to necessarily have to worry about, another SDVOSB that's also taking their work. They can mentor 3 people at a time. And so I didn't really want to compete against another SDVOSB. So I basically want to form, a perfect marriage, so to speak. Because the SDVOSB basically said it's a marriage. You're not This isn't something that you're, just like, whatever. It is a legitimate issue if you're not on the same page. So
it completely is. We've had a couple joint ventures. We haven't had a mentor. So the Speaking from Experience is a beautiful program, but it is like a marriage. So just be aware. And what type of construction opportunities, given the degree you're going to get, given their past performance, given your real estate experience, what kind of opportunities are you seeking?
So within the region that I'm looking at, there are a lot of VA additions and VA honor annexes. So an honor annex is basically a VA, a doctor's office, So a standalone doctor's office, that's your standard, like what you'd see from a doctor, but maybe twice the size. And so those honor annexes have to be built. They're always adding on wings to the VAs. So there's a new oncology wing, a new whatever. So there's all kinds of opportunities. And I would say the range of opportunities that I've been looking at have been between 10 and 20 million per opportunity. And basically how it works is they do design, bid, build. So I know there's one local that's basically in the design process. So after the design is done, then they'll put it out for bid. And they usually give about 60 days for bid. So that's where, me and my, joint venture would step in and do the bid and then go through the build process.
That is tremendous. And will you predominantly hone in on the VA, or will you look for other SDVOSB opportunities outside of the VA?
So I have safe searches on SAM that are both just VA. So that way the pre-solicitations show up because a lot of times they don't necessarily designate the set aside on the pre-solicitation. And so if I don't just have it generally as VA, I'll miss the pre-solicitation. And then I have SDVOSB all, and then I have SDVOSB VA. So those are my three main searches. So that I kind of try and stick with SDVOSB because it's been my experience that there is a lot less people that bid on SDVOSB. Obviously, small business set aside. Because I've asked contractors on bids that I've lost, how many people bid? Oh, there was 70 bids. So, and that was just regular set aside or small business. And then when I have, for example, the other contract, the second contract that I'd won, they called me to let me know because they also needed to hash out some things in the contract, which is another interesting thing. But so we were hashing out the contract and we got into discussion about whether or not there was going to be extra cleanings and whether or not that was going to be done with a contract amendment or whether it was part of the total bid. And I said, well, the clarification that was given was that it was going to be done with a contract modification. And he goes, oh, I thought it was part of the entire bid. And I was like, no, that was about $130,000 more if you want to just be able to call me and clean, up to 4 times a year and additionally. And so when we sort of hashed that out, I forget where I was going with that, but basically, we were talking about how many people bid. And he was saying that nine people bid that didn't meet the threshold. So they didn't answer all the questions. So they were just immediately dismissed. And there was only 2 of us that met the requirements, and I was the lower bid. But if I used my second bid, which was the discussion where they could just call us for cleanings without a contract mod, then I would have been the higher bid. And so talking to him, basically there was only 9 people that applied for it, whereas, the small business set aside 70 or 80. So the competition is a lot less than SDVOs.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I find that the more unusual, complex, it scares people off and they don't bid.
Yeah. And I think they intentionally put a lot of things in there to get rid of more candidates. So little things like show proof of insurance. I know a lot of small businesses that don't have insurance, right? Especially like janitorial insurance, right? So I specifically got janitorial insurance through Next, Next Insurance, which is a really easy way to get insurance. You can get it in minutes. And so I basically did that just so I could submit it for the second bid. It wasn't required in the first bid, but that's one thing. Previous experience, have you been doing this for 2 years? A lot of, you got to at least put something in there. The company that I'm subcontracting with, or it starts out with, I am proud to be subcontracting or proud to be partnering with, and then you mention your subcontractor. And then when it gets to the previous experience, you say this subcontractor has been doing this specific work for 5 years for these 2 hospital, systems, blah, 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 blah. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
it's just answering all the questions. And I literally, I took your sort of template that when you did your video, and how like you have your cover page with the bar and then you have your logo in the top right. I took out the picture though that's in the bottom right, but I have essentially the same setup. And then, going line by line, the first part is almost always the same. And then I get to the statement of work and I literally, statement of work, A, dot, whatever their A is, I answer it. Or I say something about it. B, dot, they might say, are you guys equal opportunity employer? Yes, we are. You know what I'm saying? Like you literally go dot by dot on every statement of work and answer the question, and you end up with 20 or 30 pages when you're done with your proposal. And so I think that some people don't realize that it's like writing a book report. I hated writing book reports a lot. And so it's ironic that I'm doing this, but like you end up with about 20 pages answering all the questions on just, what would seem like a simple contract. You're not just turning in, oh, hey, I can do this for this price.
And I love that analogy because it's so much like that. It's book report, it's following instruction, providing that detail. And that's also why you keep winning, because people think, oh, well, I heard over here, all I have to do is find somebody to do it and give a price. Now, there are some opportunities where literally all they want is a price. But for the one you just talked about, and for, numerous ones, that's not the case. They want way more than just, what is your sum to do this?
And I've only submitted 7 bids.
Oh, wow.
So I've won 2. I should have won 3. I still think I would have won a 3rd one if I was in the FSC. But I've only submitted ones that I feel like let me put it this way. I probably tried on 30, but I don't get any responses from subcontractors, or they don't work with, whatever. If you're not the owner, they don't work with you. You'll hear all kinds of different ways of saying no. So when it gets down to it, ones that I've actually been quoted a price in time for me to create a proposal, I've only bid not very many times. And so I know it's been way less than 10. So it's one of those things where I know I'm going to bid more in the future now that I've got the steady income coming in and I can focus on this as opposed to doing other side hustles. And so I think that's probably one of the great things about this is that because I'm subcontracting it out and it's sort of set income, I can now focus more time on it. And so basically shift away from all this other stuff I'm doing and just focus mostly on this.
And your degree is so going to help because that perfectly aligns with all of these areas.
I look forward to it. So,
are you seeking at all any teaming partners, any people out there? Because I know there's going to be people who watch this and they're like, oh my gosh, I got to get in contact with Joe. I love this. I'd love to do some work with him. Is that by chance something you're interested in?
Not really at this point. I've got a lot of people that message me from the group that's on Facebook, and I try and answer as many as I can because I believe in giving back.
Me too.
So I am, a firm believer in helping everyone else as much as you can. And so I do answer a lot of them. If I've missed yours, it's probably because it ended up in the spam folder. Like I sometimes look in the spam folder and there's people that message me from the group that's like, hey, what contract did you win? Or can you give me some pointers? I will say that a lot of the open-ended questions, they're not necessarily good. Like Alex Hormozy talks a lot about this. Like you need to have like specific questions. Like you can't just say, can anyone help me? ? Like those are so open-ended. But it's more like, hey, on this section of when I see questions like that, if I know the answer, I always chime in like, hey, in section 5, it says this, I don't know what it means, right? If I know the answer, I'll chime in because that's a specific question. But it's like when people ask open-ended questions, it's like, no, 80% of that you got to do on your own. You got to research on your own, watch, Kizzy's videos, Google stuff, read. And I hate reading and I hate doing book reports, but essentially that's what it is. You have to read and learn as you go.
You totally do. And the quality of the question impacts the quality of the answer. And then there may be some of you where you're like, well, I don't even know what to ask. And that's fine. Just start where Joe talked about, like just start learning, start jotting down questions like, oh, I don't understand this. Which attachment should I begin with? Instead of, there's so many attachments, I don't want to read all of this. Well, then maybe government contract is not for you. I mean, it involves reading, it involves writing, and it does involve math. And so it's the kind of space where everything is possible. You just got to set aside some of those views on it and just do it.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Well, I love this. So as far as the new fiscal year and everything coming up in 2024, what are some things that, I mean, we've talked about may move, may not, anything else on the horizon as far as when it comes to government contracting? You're going to springboard into medical? I don't know, like anything.
Yeah, so the VA is medical, and one thing I've discovered is medical products is pretty much oversaturated. When I call a distributor or when I call a manufacturer, one lady talked to me for quite a long time explaining to me why they don't take on new people. But basically, everybody has already made connections for the most part. So like Hillrom makes beds, and they make, bedside units and whatever else, like medical stuff. And so when you call them, you'll end up with this nice lady who does the government contracting, and they've been doing the same SDVOSBs for the past 8 years, and they only use those 7 people, right? And so they're not going to give me a quote because they're only going to quote those 7 people, and those 7 people are basically the ones who can, sell that brand. And it's the same way with a lot of medical products. So, you might get a one-off or 2, but it's just hard. So I don't necessarily want to go into the medical field, but what I will probably do is my goal is to win at least 1 contract a quarter, because I assume not every contract's going to go 5 years, but not every contract's going to be canceled after year 1. So I'm just sort of using a 2.5 as sort of the variance. And so if after 2 years I win 1 every quarter, and let's say they're about $1,500 or $2,000 in profit a month, well, by the end of 2 years, that's $10,000 a month or $12,000 a month. So I think that's probably my outside goal, my short-term goal, to sort of make this completely sustainable, where it doesn't matter what happens in commercial real estate, doesn't matter, what happens with whatever else. If there's a government shutdown and I don't get my $700 for my knee, like none of that will matter if, they have, if I have 10,000 or 12,000 coming in from, all these different contracts. So,
which is tremendous. And I love that. I love that you're super goal oriented, and these are super realistic goals. Everything he shared, there's no reason he's not going to do that and more. And I love that people were very forthcoming with you about products, because that tends to happen in a lot of areas where they have a relationship. And so that's why some people are really reluctant, or they just won't return somebody's phone call. And I think that's great. What advice can you offer someone that maybe they're SDVOSB or VOSB, and they're like, okay, where should they start? Where should they really start?
So you definitely need to start with the VA, because almost all their contracts are SDVOSB sets. And so start there. And I think my biggest thing is I forced myself, once I got my cage code, I said within 2 weeks I'm going to submit 1 bid. And so going through, and just like I was saying, you have to learn, you get to a point where you don't understand. So it's like, well, what does this mean? So you Google it. The first thing, you should Google stuff, because there's a plethora of information. So you Google it, and then maybe it doesn't give you the answer you want, or maybe there's conflicting data on the internet where one says one thing and one says another thing. So then you find videos on YouTube, and before you know it, a lot of your questions have been answered, because how do I get paid, by the VA? Oh, they use the FSC system. What's the FSC system? You start going down these rabbit holes, and before you know it, and I think it's Alex Hormozy that says 27 hours of work in a field makes you more proficient than 95% of the population in that field. And so just 27 hours of Googling questions that you have that pop in your head will make you a subject matter expert, not expert, that's probably the wrong way, will make you proficient.
Yeah.
Proficient enough. And so start with the VA, and I would say commit to doing a bid within a couple weeks. And basically, because doing is another Alex Hormozy quote, doing is so much better than basically trying to, gamify it. Well, what if? Well, when you actually get down to it, all the what ifs you had weren't really questions that you needed to answer. Just get into a quote, do the RFQ, answer the RFQ as best you can. Hopefully it's about 15 to 20 pages at least, and then you've really, I think, done a thorough job. And then you can say, okay, so this is what a bid should look like. And then you put it forward. And that's so much better than, I see people, and, not putting anyone down, but I see people on the, GovCon, well, it's been 4 months and I haven't submitted a bid yet. I'm thinking about, no, stop thinking, just do.
You do.
Put one out there.
I love that. I was going to echo that. You do. You have to do it. because the what ifs, I mean, I guess it helps somebody sleep at night, but you learn so much, and we all have enough. It's like a Dorothy. We have what we need inside of us. So by actually executing it, oh, this is how I fill this out. Oh, I have to get into their system. Okay, this is how I engage with the vendor. This is how I pay them. Like, we learn so much more by doing it and by giving that time frame. Like, okay, you have your cage code, you're going to submit within 2 weeks. I love that, because if not, 2 years go by and it's like, oh yeah, I got to do this government contracting thing. And it's like, this is not like a list item. And this is not like next to milk and cheese and eggs. I mean, this is something that where Joe is now contemplating, relocating, and now he has income coming in where this has changed his life. And then just in a short amount of months, this is real, y'all. This is real.
I know this is kind of changing subjects a little bit, but
Right.
There's something I did want to talk about where I couldn't really find this online, but like, so when you win a contract, now what? Like, nobody really talks about now what, right? And I kind of just figured this out on my own. So you get a contract, right? And the first thing you need to look for is who is the contracting officer representative. So that is, if you want to think of it in terms of whatever, you have the contracting officer who works in government contracting, right? But you have the contracting officer representative who either is or works with the person who is requesting the service, right? So the first thing you do once you win a contract is you reach out to like I always do within minutes of getting an award. I just immediately email them and say, hey, I've been awarded this contract for this service. I would like to set up a timed conference call with you and my subcontractor. When are some good times for you on Wednesday? And then I shoot that email off, and they usually shoot one back. And then you meet with them at whatever specific time, and then you set up your first service. And so I know that seems like obvious now, but before I was like, okay, I won the contract. When do I start? What am I going to do? Who do I need to reach out to? And so I figured it out, but I just wanted to mention that because I didn't really know, because nobody, I guess, really talks about that at that point. Or maybe, hopefully you haven't, and I just didn't see the video, but.
Well, what's good is that you did exactly what should happen, is reaching out to the contracting officer representative. You have some kind of kickoff, ask them questions. It's always vital to ask about payment, just to confirm. I go to this system, make sure your contract's loaded in the system. Ask them, should I send you a copy of the invoice? Should I notify you when I submit an invoice? And then, of course, cover all of the items related to the work, because you want them to love you. You want the core to fall in love with you, because a person must go through certified training to become a core. And usually they're on your contract the entire time, but just like with any other job, they may end up moving to another agency, but that core, may also evaluate you. You can use them as your past performance point of contact, or because I know you will at some point in time, bid on VA-specific contract vehicles. They're the person, and they have that touch point with the client. So it's good to do that and to confirm, locations and dates, and then they'll give you they'll provide more information. Oh, by the way, we didn't put in the statement of work, but you're like, oh, okay. And so it's great to reach out to them, and also to store copies of everything, because they're the main point of contact, but they're leaning on you. You're the one there to make their life easier. So what you did is amazing.
I will say that your relationship with your subcontractor, make sure you choose a good subcontractor, because this is where they get their warm and fuzzies from the subcontractor who's going to actually do the work, right? So basically, I would always kick off the meeting, introduce myself, introduce my subcontractors, and then I would basically hand it off to them, because they start getting into technical things. They're talking about requirements for, this type of cleaning and solvents and agents. And I'm just sitting there like I have no idea what they're talking about, but it's important that you have a subcontractor that knows what they're doing, because I almost partnered with a subcontractor who's never done it before, but he assured me he could do it. And I just thought like, nah, I'm not going to bid with him, even though he was going to be cheaper, just because, well, one, I don't think he would have met the requirements, but two, I don't know how he would have done during that meeting, because they're talking about which solvents do which things against what type of surface. And, I don't know the difference between one or the other or what they do. And if you've never done that type of cleaning, which fall under something called USP 797 standards, then I'm not sure how, they would react. So it's important that your subcontractor be very good if you're subcontracting it out. And they most importantly have to be on that first call, because they're looking for the core is looking for their life to be easier, because they have an issue that you're solving. And so that subcontractor has to go in there and wow them, like, yes, I know that type of cleaning agent. Have you thought about this type of cleaning agent? Like, they have to be on the ball because they are literally looking at you as like, okay, you're here to solve this problem. And if the headache that I have goes away, then I'm going to love you forever.
I love that. It's true. You have to, and you made such a good decision because then they can't answer those questions and they will ask. It doesn't matter if it's training. I just spoke to someone who provides housing and medical services to the VA. It's janitorial. The client has the right to ask questions just like we do. We ask questions, even something simple as how are we going to get the Amazon package? I mean, we all have questions. Those great to have people who are competent, so then the government isn't questioning, like, why do we go with them? Or should we go with them? So you did such a great job. So Joe, for anybody who wants to get in contact with you, what's the best way for them to do so?
Join Kizzy's group and then wait for me to answer a question, and you'll see me on there. I'm Joe Gardenhire, and you'll see me answering a lot of questions if I'm still active. I usually answer a lot of questions that I can. And then you can reach out to me directly. I don't mind answering questions. I do ask that they be specific questions. And that's another thing too. Be prepared for a yes. You're going to get so used to a no. Be prepared for a yes. So if you're doing a service, I would suggest having the cleanse in a spreadsheet with highlights of where you want the subcontractor to put their bid, right? So it says like, this service won X amount of dollars, and say, I need you to fill in the highlights so they know what they're bidding on. So it might be, scraping the floors and resurfacing. And then it might be, cleaning rooms. It might be, removing trash or whatever all the line items are. So that way they know what they're bidding on. And then in a separate PDF file, copy the statement of work, all of it, and have that for them. So if there is let me take a look at what you want me to quote. You have something ready for them that you can email them while you're on the phone with them. They can open it up, see the spreadsheet where the highlights are, where they need to input their whatever. And then the statement of work, it might be several pages, but they can give a quick look. Okay, like I did a roofing bid where it's like, they need to use this type of roof, this type of fasteners. Yes, I've worked with that. I've done that before, so they have something to look at. Don't just say, well, can you do a TPO roof? Sure they can. But the statement of work is going to have specifically what type of fasteners they have to use, right? And so it's one of those things where just be ready for a yes as well. So before you even call, if you're like, hey, I want to bid on this, have your cleanse and everything in a spreadsheet with where you want the subcontractors to fill their stuff out, and then a separate PDF of the statement of work. And then you're ready for when someone says, okay, I'll take a look at it. Then you can send it.
Yeah, I love that, because you also want to make it easy for the subcontract. And if it's confusing, then it just turns messy. So I love that, man. Joe, we're doing several parts after this, a ton of parts.
Well, hopefully I'll keep winning more and more contracts. We'll have more.
No, you are. I already know this. You're going to win more and more contracts because you have a strategy. First and foremost, positive attitude, goal-oriented. You have these strategies. You're doing all these things. You're executing. I love it. And also take full advantage of his offer. I have a Facebook group, probably more than likely. The link will be in the comments section.
Oh, your Facebook?
Yeah, in my Facebook group. Yeah, in my Facebook group. Make sure everybody here, everybody watching, join the group and post a question. Joe's on there. He's very, very informative and helpful. Also, feel free, to DM him, DM me, but make sure you have a question, because that's also key, right? To have a specific question and to learn. So I love that. This is all about taking advantage. There are so many people and places to go. And the one thing about my Facebook group, we're genuine. We have actual government employees on there. There are multi-million-dollar business owners that are on there, and they may never pop up, but they're members. There's almost 6,000 members right now. So it's take full advantage of somebody like Joe, because he's going to keep winning. Soon, Joe's going to have well over $5 million a year in contracts before you know it. Well, I'm excited. I'm super excited. And I want to say I'm so grateful. I'm grateful to you for sharing this tremendous journey in just a few short months, winning 6 figures in contracts. I also want to thank you personally for always being supportive in the group, because I love the answers that you give. I love the fact that you were so willing to be here with me. I can't thank you enough, Joe.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Anytime. So for all my amazing GovCon winners, join the Facebook group, hit the notification button, subscribe, and don't forget, everything is possible. Until next time, take care.